A 2023 Harvard study found that out of everything it looked for as far as the root causes to help people have longer, healthier lives, the number one thing the study found that people should focus on is their relationships. So to help solve some of the relationship crisis that we have around the world, I have created this upcoming 3-day eternal honeymoon extravaganza. I am bringing together 15 speakers from around the world in the love, sex, intimacy, and relationship space to help you finally have better passion, have better sex, have better connection, communication, intimacy, and more. And this event is normally $397 and it is on sale right now for $1. So I hope you will prioritize your relationships and join me at this epic event. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. We're talking about hidden libido killers today. So these are things that sneak into our lives or into our lifestyle, and they are killing our libido and we do not even know it. So hopefully you've been following my content over the past month here. We've spent this month really looking at some of the big causes of low libido from a physical side of things. One of the physical side of things that we did not talk about this month that oftentimes is a huge libido killer that people don't realize is pelvic floor dysfunction. So when our pelvic floor, I'm actually going to get my model here. So let me grab this. When our pelvic floor, so the pelvic floor essentially is all of these muscles that are in this area. So you can see that the spine's back here. This is the front of the body here. So in the pelvic floor area are 14 different muscles, and they hold up all your organs, but they also attach to all these bones. So if one muscle's too tight, it can twist. So it can twist this bone or that bone. It can twist the spine in different ways. So that can lead to pain, which of course doesn't help libido. But as things get twisted all around, it actually can impact blood flow. And so pelvic floor health is talked a lot about for women, especially after childbirth, when there's incontinence due to sneezing or coughing or laughing. But we really need to consider pelvic floor health as we age, and we really need to bring men into the conversation of pelvic floor health as well, because not only can it prevent against incontinence and leaking for men as well, but it can improve vascular flow for men to the penis. So this is extremely, extremely important and often not talked about because typically women get all the conversation here and men are really left out, even though, of course, you guys, you have these muscles too. So that's one thing. Another thing that I wanted to bring up toxins, because toxins are things like pesticides, BPCs. A lot of people know about BPCs in plastics, mold. All of these types of toxins are libido killers. And one of the reasons, there's several different reasons for this, but one is these toxins have been shown to cause a lot of inflammation in the body. But a lot of these toxins are known endocrine disruptors, meaning they can actually impact your testosterone level. They can actually impact your estrogen level, right? So we see that these toxins have a direct impact on our hormones. And with toxins, in part, it is all about the bucket, right? So our liver that processes these toxins has a rate. So just like a car can reach a top speed, and then no matter if you try to do anything else, unless you take it to a mechanic and you add nitrous or something else, that a car that is straight out of the line, straight off factory, is going to have a top speed, and then it's going to max out. The liver is the same way. And so the liver has its top speed, just like adding nitrous to a car. You can add a few supplements to help the liver go a bit faster, but it's still going to max out at a certain point. So when you take all these things in, pesticides, BPCs, other environmental chemicals, mold toxins, and the liver is supposed to get rid of them, it has a maximum rate. So if you're putting more in than the liver can get rid of, these things build up, and that's when they can come and affect your T levels or affect your E levels. That's when they can lead to inflammation in the body. If the body's inflamed, it's kind of like what I just talked about in my last video in the thyroid. If your body is not working up to par, your libido might not be as strong because you're not going to feel as good in your body, right? So we want to make sure we're considering all of those things. I always like people to know too, because a lot of people have heard of BPCs and there's a lot of awareness. But what happens in the marketing, or in the manufacturing world, is when something gets pressed, like BPCs, that are found in a lot of plastics, if you don't know BPCs, that can be very harmful to the hormonal system. When the word got out, we could say, about BPCs, what manufacturing companies did is they switched BPCs for another chemical that is found in plastics. This other chemical is called a phthalate. The problem is phthalates are even more damaging to the body than BPCs. So we want to be aware of that. We should generally just stay away from plastics as much as possible, because they do have a lot of these chemicals that can disrupt the hormonal system. So in addition to that, another very, very important libido killer that we are not talking about often enough is boredom. The number of times people are just bored in sex, and nobody wants to admit this, right? Nobody wants to hear this. So we're not necessarily going to go to our partner. I'm not suggesting, please don't do this actually. I'm not suggesting that you're going to go to your partner and say, like, honey, I'm bored with our sex life. But what you might want to start doing is bringing more novelty in, starting to suggest things or try different things, because some of what can happen, and this is where the new exciting factor of a new person comes in, and I'm not suggesting that that's the solution here, but it is that excitement, right? So go to my website. I'm going to put in the show notes my yes, no, maybe checklist. My yes, no, maybe checklist you can download for totally for free. And it is this resource, you guys, for starting to stimulate your brain about things. You can take it with your partner or go through this checklist with your partner to stimulate ideas about what might be more exciting to you and how to just break out of that novelty and the rut. Because that's a really big one that a lot of people are not talking about, is purely just being bored. Just a quick interlude, because I want to address that it is so common that people are struggling to prioritize their relationships and their intimate life between jobs and kids and caring for elderly parents and so much more. Sometimes it can just feel like a last thing on the to-do list. Now, if you're struggling with that, or if you're struggling with having better sex or having good orgasms or lasting longer or erectile dysfunction or pelvic pain or something else in the sex, emotional, relationship, intimacy space, you are definitely going to want to take a moment right now so you remember to sign up for the Eternal Honeymoon Extravaganza. I have 15 speakers that I've specially curated and picked from around the world for a very complete and holistic look and teachings and actionable steps from everything under the sun, sex, and relationships. So take a quick minute, go click on that link and register to make sure you remember, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now let's get back to our episode. Another thing that comes up a lot is that we do have these turn-ons and turn-offs that are natural, right? And so we have these sex types, just like we have love types. So some people, for example, can be really turned on by the environment, and so the music and the sound and all of these things. And other people that's not near as important for. But if we don't realize what sex type we are, that's another thing that could lead to problems, because then we might be just in these situations that are not turned on. We're not turned on by them just because we don't have that fundamental awareness of it. And so then our libido dies like that. So I wanted to bring that up as well, that sometimes it's just like a communication or getting in that right vibe by just not knowing your sex type. So I'm going to also put my free quiz. I'm giving you another free resource here. I'll put it in the show notes too, for finding out what your sex type is, because I think that is a really good, important resource as well. Another thing, in the physical side of things that I do want to mention are chronic hidden infections. So chronic mono, which is known as EBV, chronic COVID, for example, these chronic hidden viral infections, chronic hidden parasites, anything that can inflame the body that flies beneath the surface can actually be a libido killer. So we want to consider all of those things as well. And of course, any sort of shame or guilt. It's amazing how many times we can be carrying these micro traumas from our childhood or even from our past sexual experiences. Sometimes it's as simple as a lover saying something that was harmful or hurtful before, during, or after lovemaking session, and we hold on to that, right? We can hold on to that, the guilt or the shame or however we felt about that. So one of the ways to learn if you are experiencing any of that is if you find your mind checking out during sex, that can be a huge sign that you are experiencing sometimes a like micro trauma and you're not able to stay present. Sometimes we're not present just because the mind's very busy, you're overwhelmed, all those things. But it could be also we want to check in with ourselves, because a big thing that will cause the brain to not be present during the sexual experience is when we have these traumas and we're experiencing some sort of like memory in our tissues. So that's another big libido killer. So we do want to be aware of that. Another like a very helpful practice if you're experiencing that oftentimes is self-pleasure, but not even necessarily self-pleasure to orgasm, just like starting a self-pleasure experience and just being aware, is your mind checking out when you're doing X, Y, and Z? And how can you get close enough to that edge, but breathe into that tissue, right? And see what message there is there. But what we're really doing by breathing into that tissue that is holding that trauma is we're reconnecting that brain tissue nervous system connection. And we're working with the breath to keep the brain calm, to keep the nervous system calm while we're touching that tissue that might be holding that trauma, to retrain the nervous system to be like, whatever trauma that was, we're safe now. And of course, this is really important to mention that if you have any sort of sexual trauma, any sort of abuse, always work with a trauma therapist. I would not just try these exercises at home alone. Always make sure that you are working with somebody that can help you with that. And these are some of the top ones. Like not feeling safe is another big one. It's amazing how many times we carry these emotional micro traumas and we don't feel safe because of that. And that bleeds into our sex life. So while I don't agree with like nitpicking, but I think sometimes we give that term nitpicking. And sometimes we don't clear these small things that are bothering us and, don't make things a 10 out of 10 in severity that are a 1 out of 10, right? So it's like, if it's bothering you that your partner forgot to call when they said they would and you're holding on to that, right? We want to make sure that we're not approaching a conversation around that with a 10 out of 10. But if you're holding on to it and it's really bothering you, it is important to at least bring up and say like, hey, you're not in trouble here. I know this is not a big deal. I just wanted to share the impact of this. And I just wanted to clear the air real fast because it's bothering me and I'm holding on to that. You said X, Y, Z. Did I hear you right? Like, I thought you said this. Did you say this? Sometimes you'll find they didn't even say they would call and maybe you heard it incorrectly. Point is, we do want to find very curious ways to clear up those micro things so they don't become major things, because that is one of the biggest libido killers for both men and women. But I find oftentimes for women, usually for women, I find that it's like not voicing this stuff. And for men, oftentimes it's like feeling like there's too much nitpicking. So how much we voice it is really important. But of course, those are stereotypes and this stuff can go any which way. We just want to make sure, and I just want to make sure what I'm communicating here is those hidden things that is so easy for the mind to push back and be like, it's not that big of a deal, I'm going to let it go. But if it's still circulating in your consciousness and it's still bothering you, it's better oftentimes to fix those things when they're tiny, when they aren't a big deal, when they are a 1 out of 10 on severity, before they manifest into something. Because as they stack and as it like this little thing and this little thing, it becomes a big thing. And then the response oftentimes is a big response. And that's where we can get those responses that are like, well, this doesn't make sense for this thing at hand because it's this and oftentimes because of not speaking up for a long period of time. And that is a huge libido killer. So I just gave you a lot to work on in this video. Please do comment with your questions. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. And remember that right now my book is out for pre-release, and I am giving a ton of free things away for people that buy it ahead of time. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Ciao.